Hey everyone, it's Tyler Esselman.
And Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11, the podcast where we talk about albums that some people might say are perfect.
So perfect, in fact, Michael, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Nah. Nah. What am I saying? Oh, God. No.
Come on.
We don't have the rights.
Fair enough. I think we fell within the fair use window, though, with those two.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Two groupings of Nas.
It's possible some people might think we were doing an entirely different song than we were actually singing.
That's the beautiful thing about Nas, right?
Is it about now? What Nas are you talking about? Are you talking about Nas?
I'll leave that to your imagination.
Oh, all right, okay.
What's going on over there? How you doing?
Chilling, getting ready for we're approaching Turkey Day.
The day of turkeys. My birthday this year. I love it when it lands on Turkey Day. It's the best. Well, we have a wonderful guest today, a very a momentous guest in the history of This One Goes to 11, I think, because of the eagerness with which he requested to be on as a guest. I think he showed an alacrity that is so far unrivaled. Would you agree?
I would agree. Who are we talking to, Tyler?
We are talking to Adam Wesley Brown. Adam Wesley Brown is an actor, musician, teacher, director, comedian, writer, and D&D enthusiast with many, many years of experience both on and off the stage. Being a part of music has been his greatest joy, and he continues it to this day, playing in high-end event and wedding bands, teaching multi-instrumentalist lessons across the city of Chicago, playing plenty of shows with the So Far Sound series, both in New York and in Chicago, and working with and helping develop burgeoning artists. When not holding some kind of instrument, Adam can be found reading fantasy, sci-fi, or anything Stephen King, or playing with his cat, Lil Puss Puss. You can find him on social media at Adam Wesley Brown, and he's a real treat, isn't he?
He is. My first memory of him at good old TTS was when he was in a Sam Shepard play that I assistant directed. And
Alive the Mind, right?
Yeah, and he spent a good portion of the show. He had to just sort of like be asleep on the couch for a lot of it. That. I mean, it's Sam Shepard, y'all. I think he might have actually, a couple times, fallen asleep on the couch.
Good for him. He's a really great dude. I was so glad that he wanted to do this so badly, and I think the case that he builds for this album is par excellent.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Well, we should let them hear what he has to say, shouldn't we?
Yes. Let's shall.
One of the dwarves in the Hobbit movies, his name is Adam Brown, so I have to use Adam Wesley Brown. And there was a moment when I found out about that where I was like, okay, cool. Oh, it's like one of the dwarves in the Hobbit movies. He's got to be like one of the cool guys, like hanging out, whatever. Maybe he's even like the guy who's got the love affair with Evangeline Lilly.
Yeah.
No, he is the comic relief dumb-ass dwarf. Literally, there's a line. He says, "Oh, dragon."
Hey, a very necessary part of the scenery in that film series. It wouldn't be the same if you didn't have a dwarf going, "A dragon,
oh dragon."
Adam Wesley Brown, welcome to This One Goes to 11. How we doing?
Hi, my friends.
Oh, look at him! Look at him! It's so good to see you, dude. It's been a minute.
It's so good to see you both. Things are going really well in my world, and just to be a part of this podcast and being a big fan of this podcast and listening to you guys and talking about the work that you do, I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, well, you're a sweetheart, buddy. That's really sweet of you to say. We've been looking forward to this too, and so that the listeners know, Adam was very insistent. Adam has been motivated to be on this podcast. And we, believe it or not, that is not usually the case.
Yeah.
I petitioned very much. After a longtime fan, I was like, I can't sit by anymore. I gotta be a part.
It's very gratifying.
Well,
it's very gratifying.
We welcome that because I feel like teaching right now, teaching America's youths, I feel like there is just not the appreciation for. Not even the appreciation for albums, but appreciation for music overall feels like it's waning. So we welcome anyone who is so devoted to music and so it has such a strong relationship in their life that they need to talk about it. Come on the pod. We are ready to talk about anything music related with you. So we welcome.
For context, Adam is is another Blue Demon, DePaul Blue Demon from the theater school at DePaul University, formerly known as the Goodman School of Drama, that we all attended. Was a fourth year when I was a first year, and it was, oh man. We're just a small anecdote before we get into the nitty gritty is that you were in the show that I first worked on at DePaul, Faustus, directed by another mutual friend, Chrissy Vanderwalker.
Yes.
And really was, a fresh-faced guy coming out of St. Louis, high school in St. Louis, just pretty innocent, and getting up to Chicago and being able to work on that show with you guys was a very special thing and a formative thing for me. So you have a very special place in my heart, Adam, forever and always.
Wow, right back at you.
It's great, man. It was great. That's theater. It's the beauty of theater. But we got business. We have business to do. Okay. And you have brought before us an excellent album, and an album that I closely associate with you. Tell us, Adam Wesley Brown, what album hath thou brought before the This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
For thy perusal, I have brought It Still Moves by My Morning Jacket.
Yes.
For thine
if it pleases the court.
If it pleases the court.
Wait, you were supplicating? Is that the verb? Supplicating?
Right now?
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The listeners at home can't see, but I am
humbly presenting the album.
Supplicating as hell.
He's bewigged with a stately wig in this noble court. Excellent album that I was not very familiar with before this recording. Before you nominated it, Michael, were you terribly familiar with My Morning Jacket before Adam brought them to us?
Not this album. Yes, them, but not. I didn't go as deep on them as I had to prepare for this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I was also more familiar. Sometimes we have people who come on the podcast and they've got an artist they want to talk about, and then they announce the album, and we kind of go, "Oh, that's the album you're going to talk about?" And I think that was in this case for me, that's sort of the way I felt too, because my introduction to them was not this album, it was a different one, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So for sure. I think you probably know which one I'm talking about, but yeah.
No, well, but this is the interesting thing I think about My Morning Jacket is that when you say that, Michael, I don't actually know, because I think this band really spans a lot of genres, ideas, musical worlds. So It Still Moves speaks to me, but the fact that you're going, I have an album, I can't pick it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
All
well,
right.
for those of you who may have not been terribly familiar with My Morning Jacket's body of work, we have everyone's favorite segment to catch you up. Michael, what is that segment called?
It is called The Beginner's Guide to My Morning Jackets. It Still Moves in 60 Seconds.
And who's doing it today?
It is I. I have the pleasure.
It's his cross to bear today.
It was tricky because they don't. I mean, they do interviews, but they don't say much. They say some things, but they kind of they talk about their music a lot, but I don't know much about them. Also, we've covered artists this season, especially who have fraught histories, and I mean, it feels like My Morning Jacket, they've been kind of okay, we're doing our thing. Maybe there has been some upheaval along the way, but if so, they haven't let it get to the press or get the better of them. So anyway, I think I did okay. We'll see what you think.
Okay, well, Adam, as a devotee of the pod, you know that it is your responsibility to assess the job that Michael did. You'll be able to grade him on his performance at the end of the 60 seconds in whatever terms seem proper to you, given the context of this recording. Does that make sense?
It does indeed, and I'm going to, as a longtime My Morning Jacket devotee, as well as a devotee of the pod, I'm going to grade you on stuffed grizzly bears that they often carry with them through their live shows.
Perfect.
So, Michael, no pressure, but it's about how many stuffed grizzly bears.
I mean, much like previous guest Noah Lawfer, I really want to get the stuffed grizzly bear. So, or even with a dinosaur, he wanted.
This is a stuffed dinosaur, but
honestly, I just listened to his episode earlier today.
Yep.
Yeah. Just know that that's coloring.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
What's
cool.
happening?
Interesting.
All right.
Well, Michael, are you ready? I've got 60 seconds on the clock.
All right.
You're beginning in 3, 2, 1, go.
Louisville, Kentucky's My Morning Jacket got its start in 1998 when founder Jim James needed an outlet for all the acoustic songs his band couldn't use. Their sound? That's tricky. Live, they've been compared to both Lynyrd Skynyrd and Black Sabbath. In the studio, they're somewhere at the intersection of indie, alt-country, southern rock, jam band, and psychedelic, but you know how we feel about genre around here. Their third album, 2003's It Still Moves, marked a transition for the band, with 2 original members departing and being replaced soon after its release. It was also their first major label release on Dave Matthews Band's ATO Records. It features a lot of trademark My Morning Jacketism, such as James's high, chiming voice with a generous amount of echo, an effect they often generated by having James record his vocals in a grain silo. The album garnered mostly positive reviews, with the exception of one from Robert Christgau, who called it his dud of the month, though most critics agree their 2005 follow-up Z was their real breakthrough, drawing comparisons to both Radiohead and Wilco. Perhaps they're best known for their live performances, though, including a 4-hour set in the rain, starting at midnight at 2008's Bonnaroo, where they covered, of all things, Erykah Badu's Tyrone.
Holy moly, Osinski. Come on. You're getting better and better, my friend. You're improving.
All right, Adam. How'd I do?
I'm at a loss for words at the moment. That was 16 stuffed grizzly bears.
Wow. Full size?
100%.
Okay.
Full size stuffed grizzly bears.
Mama grizzlies.
I'm going to also give you 3.5 stuffed grizzlies for all of the interesting things I want to come back and talk to you about those things that you brought up.
Okay.
So what is that? 16?
19 and a half.
19 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of grizzlies.
It's also so interesting, you guys, because this pod is so cool, and this record means, I don't know how to put into words what it means to me.
Yeah.
I will attempt to quantify it in our episode today, but to have you nail it down in 60 seconds like that, I'm going to give you an extra 7 stuffed grizzly bears.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that is 26 and a half stuffed grizzly bears for Michael's job.
It's so good. It's so
generous.
Good.
Generous. And some of your best work, Michael. I'm gonna go so far as to say.
I would say, as a longtime listener of the pod, you nailed it.
All right. Well, thank you.
You nailed it.
Well, before we dive into the album, we need to talk about you. We need to find out more. The big question we want to know is, what's your relationship with music, past and present, writ large, as Mr. Tyler Esselman likes to say?
I think in a sentence, music is life for me. My first memories are sitting in the back of my dad's Nissan, singing along to Steely Dan lyrics with him.
Approved.
The
Dan. 3,000 points for the Dan.
The Dan. And also it was Do It Again from Can't Buy a Thrill. That
excellent album.
Music has just been everything for me. I've been an actor and a performer all my life, and acting has been my profession, my world. Music has always been my outlet. If I was a professional actor, getting to jam with anybody in any scenario, small, large, anything in between, a day does not go by where I don't pick up an instrument. At this point in my life, I teach music. I get to teach music for 5 different instruments at the School of Rock here in the Lakeview location of Chicago.
Yeah, right there by the Art of Pizza.
You know it. You know it.
I'm going to give you 9,000 points for the Art of Pizza.
No, music has just been everything to me. The moment I met my wife was tied to a piece of music. The moment I discovered what life was tied to a piece of music.
Say more about that. What do you mean? What do you mean by the moment that you discovered what life was? Is that when you met your wife? Is that what you're referring to, or you're saying?
I would say both. The moment I met my wife, we were listening. We were at a restaurant, and Louis Armstrong's La Vie en Rose came on the
stereo or the
stereo,
the speakers,
the music above
the speakers,
us
the speakers.
And it was just this moment. And then when I proposed to her, we were in Paris, and La Vie en Rose was playing as we sealed the deal. At the same time, when I was a young kid, I mean, music was everything. The group that I grew up with, who taught me how to do theater, we spoke in Shakespeare and we spoke in music. So we would do classical theater. We would do these great, intense moments of theater. And then we would go out to our cars in the parking lot and we would smoke cigarettes and listen to Tom Waits. And we would listen to My Morning Jacket. And we would listen to David Bowie. And we would listen to these songs. And we would equate the two. And so like my artistic growth as a human being and I would argue, even my awakening as a human being came from music. And I always talk about when I'm with friends out and about in the world, even today, if we're out and about in a restaurant and we're eating some delicious, like 3-star Michelin star restaurant, it's so good. And if there's music playing, I promise you 25% of my brain is tied into the music that's playing. And this could be the most tasty, beautiful, sumptuous, good food. But if Surrogate City is playing in the background, I'm listening to the bass line. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or we're out at the grocery store and we're like, okay, we got to get this thing for the Thanksgiving dinner. And we got to pull this and we got to do this thing. And then there's like ants marching happening. And I'm going,
oh my goodness.
There's that snare. Cat. Yeah, let's get that exact, that kind of thing.
He's fully immersed in this image, listeners. Just so you know, he is transported in this moment, thinking about ants marching, playing it. Were you at a Target? I was seeing you in a Target. That's where I was seeing you.
Honestly, yes. I waxed poetical. Let me dial it down. Music is life to me. Yeah. I have made it my life. It is everything to me. So whatever I'm doing around the world, if I can't equate it to some cool piece of music or tie it into or decompress from it with some kind of piece of music, I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
my thinking.
I'm going to give you 50,000 points for, and this I feel like is the thesis of that you just shared with us, is that you spoke in music and in theater, because that was like my first experience of meeting you too. That thing that you were saying about smoking cigarettes outside and talking and listening to music, you and the older kids at TTS were doing that out front of the theater school. And I was like, damn, these guys are in it. These people are fully immersed in this creative place. It was like freaking Hogwarts. You know, we had everything. We had everything at our disposal. I cherish that memory. So 50,000 points for that. What instruments do you have in the quiver at the moment? You said you teach 5 instruments at the School of Rock. Which ones do you consider yourself proficient in?
Oh my goodness. So my camera is just faced on my nerd bookcase right here, but I've got 2 guitars and a bass on this wall. I've got a mandolin. I play keyboards, drums. I play ukulele, melodica, which is adjacent to keyboard, harmonica.
Yeah.
That's
a lot more than 5, buddy.
Yeah. My whole thinking has been, and this has been from when I was a young kid, is that if it makes a funky sound, I want to be a part of it. I'm interested in it. I want to play it.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not good at it, I just want to get after it.
It sounds like you might be one of those guys that can just sort of pick up an instrument and kind of figure it out, which I am 100% not that way.
I'll give you 3 grizzly bears on that one.
On that take? Okay. All right. We'll say wah, wah. I said 3 grizzly bears for Tyler not believing in himself. Thank you. I need you as a hype man. Do you remember when you first heard this album? Is it imprinted on your mind?
Oh boy, do I ever. I remember so vividly because let me say this about My Morning Jacket and this record.
Yeah.
Coming from Louisville, Kentucky, I'm wearing my Morning Jacket.
Yep.
I got the swag. This was a hometown hero band. And I remember so vividly whatever his name was, God bless him, whoever he was, an older kid in my after-school theater program. He said, hey, you should listen to this. It Still Moves record. And it had just come out. And I went down to the now defunct Ear Ecstasy record store in Louisville, Kentucky.
Love
God
that.
bless it.
600 points for Ear Ecstasy.
Ear Ecstasy. With all my heart.
Yeah.
I went down there with my dad, and he picked me up from rehearsal from some play I was doing at the time. I said, hey, this kid told me we got to go down to this store and pick up this record. And I picked up the record, and it was, I had like $20 in my allowance, and I was like, this is the record I'm buying. So it was the record, and I picked it up, and there was a billboard right outside of the store, right on Bardstown Road of Louisville, Kentucky, right outside of Ear Ecstasy. And I had bought the record, and I put it in my dad's Buick, like 98 Park Avenue, and I put it in. And it was, I tell you, like the moment the first notes hit of Megiddo, bow, 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 it just like, it spoke to something in me. And my dad, who like taught me how to listen to music and handed me my first guitar, he could not have liked this record less. He immediately hated it.
What was it? Did he ever articulate what it was about the album that he didn't like or that didn't speak to him?
Yes. So my dad grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, and with that clean kind of sound. He was also the guy who introduced me to Steely Dan. And I think Steely Dan, their sound is very clean, very compact, like tight, really nice and put together. And all of a sudden, I'm bringing in the record of Megiddo, which has just all this reverb. And what he says to me is, he goes, I don't like it. It's too much reverb. And I said to him, I said, no, wait. I think it's going to be good. And he just goes, too much reverb.
All right, I'm going to give your dad 9,000 points for too much reverb. Too much reverb. That reminds me of Too Much Tuna from the Kroll Show, if you're familiar. Too much reverb. That makes sense, though, because that seems to be one of the trademarks of their music across their discography, at least in some amount. Because I would argue that he can't judge. I mean, obviously you can't judge any album by one song, I think, but he can't judge the characteristic sound quality of this album on that song because it's all over the place. It goes all sorts of different places. So it really bears sticking with it to see which shades on that album speak to you. There's a lot of them.
We talk sometimes about how like the first track on an album often like really kicks things off. Like sometimes, I'm always a fan of a track that like really grabs you right away. And I will say for this album, it's not that same effect for me, because I think that like as I listened to it more over the past like couple weeks or so, like the heart and like the core of this album is somewhere further down the line. Like it's almost like they're sort of like easing you in a little bit, or like letting you into their world, and then sort of, like building up to the climactic points. Do you agree with that?
I couldn't agree with you more. I got a really good chance, and I'm the first in the pod to be able to have the experience last week. I got to see them perform the entire album cover to cover for the 20th anniversary. They play the whole record live, and I got to see that happen live in front of me.
Where was that?
That was at the Chicago Theater.
Ooh,
excellent spot to see them.
I mean,
perfect space.
Dude, like, just because what they did is that they walked out on stage and they started, and just the first notes of Magita, they started, and they did not speak a single word for about 90, maybe let's say like 82 minutes, and played the whole record nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just transcendent. It was just amazing.
That's amazing. I wish artists would do that all the time. That they would I know they want to workshop their new material generally when they're on tour and see what works for the purpose of development of those songs. Not all the time. Maybe that's an overstatement. But I really love when you get to experience a whole album live. I don't think I've ever had it actually. But the idea of it is sterling, and I'm going to give them 20,000 points for giving you that experience.
Can I pop on top of that 50,000 points for that experience? Because it was, I'm not kidding.
Oh, you're requesting an edit. I see.
I'm requesting an edit because
if it pleased the court.
If it pleased the court, I say it with no qualms whatsoever. I think it was the greatest rock show I've ever seen in my life.
And here's what I'll say to that. I'll allow it. That's what we're going to say. 50,000 points for providing you with the greatest rock show of your life. Come on.
Yeah.
Had you seen them live before?
Boy, Michael, I don't even know how to answer that question. So the first time I saw My Morning Jacket was at the Louisville Palace. This was in late 2004. And they were supporting Wilco, which is another one of my, which was one of my submissions to you guys. Yeah, nominations to you guys for a perfect record. They were supporting the Ghost is Born tour, and I got to see both Wilco and My Morning Jacket in the same show for the first time at 6th row.
Wow.
Since then, I have seen both of those bands. Let's leave Wilco on the side, but I've seen. I was trying to count this up with my best buddy, who I went to go see this show with this past week. I must have seen the Jacket 20, 25 times.
Oh my God!
And I see a lot of music. I see a lot of music all across the board: jazz, rock, soul, whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
The Jacket has just been one of those groups that I come back to time and time again. I've seen them in large venues. I've seen them in small venues. I've seen them solo acts. Yeah.
I think you get was it last week that we gave Janice the This One Goes to 11 Steadfast Concert Goer?
It's true.
Award?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think you may
that was
have to
15 times that she had seen Tori Amos, but you overtake her tally by a good deal. So Adam, I'm going to award you with the second This One Goes to 11 Steadfast Concert Goer Award for seeing Gold Star for seeing My Morning Jacket 25 times. That takes real dedication. That takes planning, it seems.
Yeah, man. I mean, where I come from, the Jacket are hometown heroes.
Right,
and in prepping for this podcast, I'm trying, as a professional musician and now a music teacher, I'm trying to separate this record and my love of it and the music of it from an emotional standpoint.
Can you ever, though? Is that possible?
That's the hard thing. I can't separate my devotion to this group. Mm-hmm. Love them, hate them, whatever. Mm-hmm. But the emotional experience I have when I'm viewing them speaks to me more than any theatrical performance I've ever seen, speaks to me more than any other band I've ever seen. It's just... I would say it's part religious.
Hey, we got to have a little religion in our life, right? No matter what flavor it takes.
Well, Adam, I think we gotta let the listeners give a little listen. So we have to. The suspense is killing us. What have you chosen as your standout track from this album?
I have chosen "Golden," the best song that's ever been written.
Say no more.
Wow. Okay.
Say no more. If you can't handle that intro, then get out of the kitchen is what I say.
Yeah. Then go listen to Joe Rogan. Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're gonna give "Golden" by My Morning Jacket a listen. See you in just a minute. That's the end of part 1. If you access this episode via our YouTube playlist, you're about to hear our guest's standout track. If you'd like to jump ahead to part 2, you'll find a link in the description of this episode.